No data? No problem. With the lowest data rates in the country, have extra fun with SLT Extra GB.
For more details, call 1212.
Tonight, PSC jeopardizes national security. Dr. RAJAPAKSHE sends a 12-point letter to the Speaker. Grand plans of backbenchers. UNP mulling the impeachment of the President. Juggling superpowers. Foreign powers scrapping to get a foothold in Sri Lanka isn't all doom.
I think Sri Lanka is in a prime position to take advantage of this global football match which is being played over Sri Lanka.
No joy for Williams. A new women's champion crowned at Wimbledon. All that and much more coming up on First at 9 this Saturday, the 13th of July 2019.
මුහුණ සති කීපයකට කලින් Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා ෆෑනස් වැඩි වෙලා.
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ ෆෑනස් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක වැඩි කරගන්න. Fair and Lovely men anti-marks cream.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Ekanaike. Let's take you straight to local stories. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is buoyed with the government's achievement on Thursday when it survived a no-confidence motion in Parliament. Addressing an event in Nawalapitiya today, the Premier went on to say that the survival of the no-confidence motion is a massive win and the opposition has become so weak to the point they can't even hold a debate. Sajith Premadas is building houses in his capacity as the Minister of Housing. Minister Digambaram is also doing so in the estates. Minister Partli Champik is building flats to people with low income. My minister too has a hand in building houses for homeless in North and Northeast. All these houses come with title deeds. All of this are a result of the open economy and the initiatives we launched to support the poor. We scored a huge win on Thursday. The opposition today is even unable to carry on a debate. Now, after the United National Party-led government survived the no-confidence motion, the UNP is now setting its sights on unseating the head of state. Backbenchers of the United National Party say that they will initiate proceedings toward the impeachment of President Maithripala Sirisena. Speaking at a media briefing held at Sirikota today, they added that the JVP, the architects of the no-confidence motion, will back the impeachment of the president. It is evident that the JVP clearly agrees to an impeachment motion against the president through the facts presented in the no-confidence motion. Signatures of 75 parliamentarians are required for an impeachment motion, and I would like to say that we will start proceedings pertaining to this. Even with the 7, 8 or 9 parliamentarians we have now, we will sign and prepare the impeachment motion and present it in Parliament. In order to bring the culprits of the Easter attacks to book, people with a backbone should sign this impeachment motion. We are ready to work towards bringing a presidential election even before its due date in January. The Prime Minister made a statement saying that he will reveal everything he knows before the Parliamentary Select Committee. As per my view, the reason behind the Prime Minister agreeing to testify and the President failing to do so is because the head of state is neglecting his responsibilities. Now, UPFA parliamentarian ROHITHA believes the script for Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe's appearance before the Parliamentary Select Committee probing the Easter Sunday attacks is already prepared. Speaking at a media briefing in Colombo today, the parliamentarian said that the Prime Minister jumping the gun to appear before the PSC has all the hallmarks of a scripted move. He also criticised the committee itself for being a mechanism for political cleansing. Speaking to us during a group meeting, opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa said that irrespective of the deals we have with the government, we should use our vote in favour of the no-confidence motion, and we fulfilled our duty. We witnessed that several members of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party weren't present at the time. Anurakumara Dissanayake should ideally pose that question to the President and ask as to why they weren't present. The JVP couldn't stand the fact that Mahinda Rajapaksa was made the Prime Minister of this country. We know that the entire country is tired with this government and the JVP is now attempting to wash their sins away. Ranil Wickremesinghe is ready to testify before the Parliamentary Select Committee even before being called. The PSC has already conveyed their plans to call him for an appearance. They have already forwarded him the questions and their answers. He is a fearless Prime Minister as he has the grip on the government. The PSC has now become a cleansing factory and it's a shame to the Parliament.
කුණු හෝදන පැක්ටරියක් බවට පත් කරලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවල ලැජ්ජයි.
Venerable Athuraliya Ratanathera warns that if the United National Party parliamentarian Rishad Badiuddin is given a ministerial position again, another no-confidence motion will be brought against him in Parliament. Addressing a function held in Mawathagama, the Thera requested the President to hold a presidential election as soon as possible. The Thera also alleged a ministerial position is set to be handed to MP Badiuddin since he, along with the Tamil National Alliance, protect the government. Moreover, he said that any postponement of elections by the head of state will be a bad example. The official term of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing fraud and corruption at state institutions from 2015 to 2018 has been extended by another 3 months. The term of the Commission was expected to come to an end on the 18th of July. However, following the extension, it is expected to end on the 18th of October. President Maithripala Sirisena appointed a Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate allegations of corruption and malpractices that had taken place at state institutions from the 15th of January 2015 to the 31st of December 2018. The interim report of the Commission, chaired by retired Supreme Court Justice Upali Aberatne, was handed over to the President on the 6th of June. Now, an Indian media report says that New Delhi is keeping a close eye on rumblings in Sri Lanka over the status of forces agreement mooted to be signed with the United States. The report quotes an informed source as saying, quote, "Delhi will respect Colombo's decision on the matter. We are keeping a close watch as this pertains to our neighbourhood that has strategic significance for India," unquote. Calls to be cautious with the agreement have been rife, and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe in Parliament rejected reports which say the pact is already inked. He did, however, say that both parties have been discussing a draft. Now, the Parliamentary Select Committee probing the Easter Sunday attacks already convened a number of high-profile state officials and parliamentarians to testify before them, with media given access to the proceedings. With the Director of State Intelligence Service also reported to testify before the committee, Parliamentarian Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapakshe is sceptical over the committee's purpose, saying the PSC jeopardizes the country's national security. The parliamentarian communicated the matter to Speaker of Parliament Karu Jayasuriya in a 12-point letter.
The Parliamentary Select Committee appointed to probe the Easter Sunday attacks has summoned various persons before it as it attempts to shed light on the events leading up to the Easter Sunday attacks. The committee is set to convene next on the 24th of this month with 5 state officials, including Chief of the State Intelligence Service Senior DIG Nilantha Jayawardena, convened to testify before it. Although the Parliamentary Select Committee was appointed in the interest of national security, Parliamentarian Dr. Vijayadasa does not see it that way. Addressing a 12-point letter to Speaker Karu Jayasuriya, the MP says that the PSC jeopardizes national security. In the letter, Dr. Rajapakshe pointed out that the second clause of the Public Security Ordinance is equipped with provisions to protect institutes, places, equipment, organizations and information, and that according to the 7th clause of the ordinance, it is prohibited to provide any intelligence information or document to any party. The letter goes on to say that such information can be provided only to the Commander-in-Chief, Inspector General of Police, Commanders of Army, Navy, Air Force and the intelligence officers. Dr. Rajapakshe also points out that as per the Official Secrets Act, a secret document is any document which contains any secret, official code or anything written in such code, and any map, sketch, plan, drawing, blueprint, photograph, model or other representations of a prohibited place or anything therein or of anything relating to the defences of Sri Lanka. Accordingly, the parliamentarian reminds that if someone obtains secret information that should be kept with the state intelligence unit with or without power, allowing such act broadcasting such information through media is a criminal act, and according to the 26th clause of the ordinance, it is punishable with either a jail sentence not exceeding 14 years or a fine of 20,000 rupees or even both. The letter addressed to the Speaker also explains that the Constitution has not given a mandate to the Parliament to obtain these secret information or question them. MP Vijaydas Rajapakshe goes on to highlight that the President as the Commander-in-Chief and the Minister of Defence has intentionally breached provisions 31(1)(a) and 38(2)(a)(1) of the Constitution by allowing state intelligence information to be revealed.
Rumblings in the tea sector and how Sri Lanka should balance jostling superpowers. All that coming after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, as Sri Lanka is heading towards becoming an economic hub in the Indian Ocean, renowned international economist Dr. Howard Nicholas says it is pivotal that the Sri Lankan government ensures the country's economic and political independence. Speaking to Indivari Amuwatha on our current affairs program at Hyde Park, Dr. Nicholas went on to say that Sri Lanka must play a neutral role when dealing with economic superpowers, especially when entering into agreements and deals.
Sri Lanka is more and more involved in this regional power play where India, China and of course the United States, we see heavy involvement here. But from an economic perspective, whom should we be closer to, or what should we adopt in managing these great nations?
I say two things on this, Indivari. The first I say is that paramount importance is economic and political independence. Sri Lanka is not a vassal of anybody and should never become a vassal of any big power. That's of course very difficult in this world, but it should be a goal of government to have this. For a long time, Sri Lanka was not considered interesting for the West, India, as an economic entity. It's only when China started lending money to Sri Lanka and building Sri Lanka's infrastructure that eyebrows were raised in India and, of course, more so in the United States. And now Sri Lanka has become a football, as it were. From my way of thinking, one of the things you have to do is to make sure that everyone is accorded due respect. Whether it's China or United States or India, we give them all due respect, but provided they respect the independence of Sri Lanka. I think Sri Lanka is in a prime position to take advantage of this global football match, which is being played over Sri Lanka, and ask all those who are interested now to come and participate with Sri Lanka to build up this manufacturing that we've been talking about. Crucially, to agree to bring their technology and knowledge and share it with Sri Lanka. This is something that is often very difficult to do. I believe Sri Lanka is now in a position to do with foreigners because, somehow for geopolitical reasons and other reasons, they think being involved in Sri Lanka is important.
Do you think so far, all these agreements and deals and our involvement with these foreign superpowers, that Sri Lanka may at some point put our sovereignty at stake?
There is always a danger because they are in this geopolitical battle. And obviously they would want to make sure that they have a bigger stranglehold over Sri Lanka than the other superpower. the best solution for all of them is if Sri Lanka is neutral and each of them can make a contribution and strengthen Sri Lanka and enhance its neutrality. And I think this is what Sri Lanka has to do and look at agreements in that context.
Why do you think Sri Lanka has been unable to dictate terms if Sri Lanka is so important in this region?
Simplistically, I would say it's the lack of economic power. It makes Sri Lanka vulnerable. It makes Sri Lanka dependent on loans and access to monies from, let's say, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the aid group. So that makes their bargaining position very weak. You have to develop your economy and develop an economic power base.
The tea sector has seen a decreasing trend in prices recently, with a kilogram of green leaf currently going at 80 to 85 rupees, marking a drop of 25 rupees. When First at 9 inquired on the plummeting tea prices, Chairman of Sri Lanka Tea Board, JEOPARDISES, highlighted that it is usual for the months of May, June and July to face a drop in prices. That said, the Sri Lanka Tea Factory Owners Association says that decrease in prices is unusually far too low. Its chairman noted that the industry is currently faced with high operational costs stemming from low crops, high interest rates and declining prices, adding further pressure on the industry.
The tea industry has played an important role in terms of its economic contribution to the national output, accounting for about 14% of the total exports in the island. Furthermore, the tea industry is accountable for 62% of the total agriculture exports in Sri Lanka. However, concerns have been raised in the industry, particularly with regard to the plummeting prices of tea. Sri Lanka's tea prices on national average for May this year were down by 51 rupees and 69 cents per kilo compared to the month of May last year, with the biggest deficit coming with medium and low-grown tea. Similarly, the green tea leaf prices too have gone down during the past few months.
Green tea price is directly linked to the auction price that is obtained in the Colombo auction. So when the green leaf, when the auction prices go down, the green leaf prices also go down. So the expectations were high. So last 2 months it has gone down to about 80 to 85 rupees a kilo of green leaf, which is not bad at all. But again, the prices going up in August, this will be corrected. Every year this happens. Month of June and half of July, the prices drop, but their crop increases, the yield. So they get more money to the hand, really. Almost double the quantity of a usual month during May and June.
Although Chairman of Sri Lanka Tea Board, JEOPARDISES, highlighted that it is normal for tea prices to reduce during the month of June and July, stakeholders in the tea industry think otherwise.
We are very much concerned about declining prices because about 2 months ago it was around 625 rupees low-grown price, average price. It came down to about 520 rupees, almost by about 100 rupees. Now green leaf rate also came down about 25 rupees. So all the growers and the factory owners all very much concerned about a declining trend. Shortage of green leaf actually due to the replanting not taken at the correct pace. So it was very much less now. Earlier it was about 3%. Now it has come down to less than 1%. That is why the shortage of green leaf. Actually last 2 months we had a better crop. That also contributed to price decline. So I think buyers also cash in on this situation, and when there's more quantities available at auction, when it goes beyond 7 million kilos, always there's a tendency the prices to come down. That is what is happening. Last year we never had this kind of the price downfall.
Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tea Factory Owners Association, UK Ranasinghe, points out that the declining crop has affected many tea factories running only at 50% of their capacity.
Declining crop really created a big competition among factories. Capacities of the factories have reached saturation point. Now we need more crop to fulfill our capacities. Most of the factories in this country running at 50% or 60% capacity. Some are below 50%. Unless you get at least 75% of their capacity, you can't make it a profitable factory. So we are very much concerned about replanting program because of that. This time the ministry promised us they are formulating new system on replanting and increasing subsidies to farmer and giving some certified plants. So that's a welcome move as a long-term solution.
The association further noted that more than 100 factories have requested relief from the government as they are unable to continue in their operation owing to low crops, high interest rates and declining prices.
We requested from the government through the line minister to give them the relief that they are asking. Mostly they are asking reschedulement of their loans and bring down the interest rates of those loans. And also some factories are asking moratorium on sale of their factories and collaterals by banks. So Minister promised us he would consider some kind of relief package to our factory owners. He also told the bankers that this is not a few people's problem, but it's going to be 2 million people's problem.
Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, says that the CBSL anticipates a further reduction in lending rates by up to 200 basis points and expects the average lending rates of banks to come down further. Speaking to media recently, he went on to say that the CBSL will monitor the rates over the next few weeks. Sri Lanka's bank prime lending rate, which is published weekly by the central bank, had fallen to 11.13% by the 5th of July from 12.2% on the 3rd of May, while average weighted lending rate was 14.48% for May this year, up from 14.47% in April.
Prime lending rate has come down about 120 basis points, but the average weighted lending rate hasn't moved very much at all. To be fair by banks, deposit cap I think was placed at the end of April. It would take a little bit of time for them to reprice their deposits because the stock of deposits, will be 6 months, 12 months, whatever. So their cost of financing won't come down till they start repricing their deposits. So that repricing now has been taking place for a couple of months, and we would anticipate a significant reduction. And we have said up to 200 basis points in lending rates. And not just the prime lending rate, but the average weighted lending rate. We need to see it come down. In the coming weeks, we would monitor that very carefully. And we really don't want to impose a lending cap because those kind of measures are highly distortionary. But if we are forced to do it, we would do it.
Earlier this month, Fitch Ratings said the banking sector's non-performing loan ratio spiked to 7.7% by March 2019 from 5.9% at March 2018, with the target customer base suffering from the economic slowdown. This comes at a time where bad loans at Sri Lanka's banks had risen 64% in the first quarter of 2019, the worst since 2013. Speaking to journalists, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, voiced his concern on the matter and said that the CBSL is monitoring the situation very closely.
How concerned are you about the NPL, rising NPL?
Clearly, it's something we need to be cautious about and monitor very carefully. To a significant extent, it's a function of the business cycle in the sense that with growth moderating to the extent it has, it would inevitably have an impact on the NPLs. It's certainly, so what we need to do though is to really get growth going again. And we're trying to push lending rates down and we have pushed liquidity into the system. All that taken together, hopefully will get the economy going.
Today's context is completely different than those situations. The growth is very low. At that context, how do you see NPL and how concerned are you about it?
We are concerned enough to monitor it very, very closely. I don't think we have still got to the point where we are seeing red lights flashing.
NPLs, what we need to monitor is the NPLs are rising, banks will have to provide, and that will have impact on capital. At the moment, I don't think banks, in terms of capital ratios, they are basically well above the required capital, even after the making provisions for the NPLs.
Meanwhile, the governor was also asked on the progress of the relief package extended to the tourism sector following the Easter Sunday attacks.
Is the moratorium happening as intended?
So we are now beginning to see a build-up of momentum. Clearly, it took the banks a bit of time to gear up for it. So, in fact, talking to the people in the tourism sector, the general consensus is that the moratorium is working okay. Where there is a challenge still are these working capital loans. There are, particularly for small people. Now the government has initiated a 1.5 million rupee loan facility, which will have a 75% guarantee, which the central bank is helping to administer. But that is actually just beginning to be implemented. But I must confess that there is some pressure to extend the threshold. But that, of course, the government would need to find the money at a time when it's fiscally constrained.
We take a look at what's happening across the globe on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the US Federal Trade Commission has approved a roughly $5 billion settlement with Facebook Incorporated this week over its investigation into the social media company's handling of user data. The settlement first appeared on US media. The FTC has been investigating allegations of Facebook inappropriately sharing information belonging to 87 million users with the now defunct British political consultancy firm Cambridge Analytica. The probe has focused on whether the sharing of data and other disputes violated a 2011 consent agreement between Facebook and the regulator. Shares of Facebook rose after the news was reported by the Wall Street Journal earlier yesterday and closed up 1.8%. Earlier this year, Facebook said it had set aside $3 billion to pay for what it said a penalty between $3 to $5 billion. Now, UK's Scotland Yard has been criticised for warning media organisations against publishing leaked government documents. Metropolitan Police Assistant Commissioner advised editors that it could be a criminal matter. His comments came as a criminal investigation was launched into the leak of diplomatic emails from the UK ambassador in the US, Sir Kim Darroch. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.